All right.
There we go.
Good morning. This is Melissa Ryan joining you with Lauren Jensen and Stephanie Weeden, who will introduce themselves shortly. This is the third time that we've done a Facebook Live. And this time, actually, you guys came with some things feeling inspired by your work, I'm imagining, and what you're seeing. And so what we wanted to just speak to was even in my own office, I'm seeing, and I look pretty dark. No, not better. I'm seeing where people are feeling the difficulties of the time. It just feels like a stressed out sort of deal. And so, yeah, we just wanted to speak to if you're feeling stressed out, if you're feeling overwhelmed, ways to cope. And how about you guys go ahead and share how you got to this topic and why you wanted to talk about it.
Sure.
Well, I'm Stephanie, and this is Lauren, and we have a practice in Golden called Rooted Counseling. And as Melissa said, we've been here. We specialize in grief and loss, and so our previous topics have been the myths of grief and things to say or not to say to a griever. So we were thinking, we've talked a lot about what to do if you're the supporter of a griever or if you're kind of on the outside looking in. So we were thinking, like as you said, you know, with the way things are going in the world today and in our lives, and even with the changing of the seasons, if you are the griever, there's the idea of, now what? What do I do? How do I get through this? How do I get through this time or through something hard? And not just for grief, but these things that we're talking about today can be great for anxiety, great for, as you said, you know, just having a hard time.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to do the overview of what we'll cover today?
Yes. So we're talking about the concept of coping flexibility. And so I think we've all probably heard the term coping or self-care or the language of like a coping toolbox. And so this is, we're going to talk about 4 categories in coping, and that will be self-care or basic needs, physical release, cognitive coping, and seeking comfort or relaxation.
Okay, cool.
And then,
so that's kind of your agenda of what you want to cover today.
Yep.
So this is good for anyone that's listening, have an idea of what's coming.
Yeah, and we break it into these 4 categories just to help us think about what different coping styles, how they fit, and what different things are that we can do. So the first one is we think about basic needs, self-care, and we can start out really fundamental here. And I mean, this is great because I am sick, and so my basic needs are getting enough rest, eating, taking some time for myself, like slowing down, those basic things that literally sometimes when we're grieving or going through a really hard time, we think we have to keep functioning the way that we have been, but sometimes honestly, like what we need to do are basic things like eat, sleep, rest, and connect. And that is accomplishing a lot. It doesn't have to be maintaining what we were doing the whole time before. That actually sometimes slowing down and just focusing on those basic needs is a huge accomplishment and takes a lot of work, and it might be what our bodies need. And it's important to know too that sometimes those basic needs, like they fall to the wayside when we're grieving, when we're super stressed out, because we're just trying to get through as best as we can. But actually, it's okay to slow down just a little bit and really focus on some of those things. And that simple goals matter too, because we hear a lot of our clients talk about what they didn't get to accomplish or things that they couldn't do because of how grief got in the way, or their stress or their anxiety. And sometimes it's literally being like, oh my gosh, I got out of bed today and I brushed my teeth. That can be a big step given the landscape or situation of what else emotionally might be going on. So it's kind of like changing the whole landscape of thinking about basic needs. Self-care might be big, but it actually is okay if it's small.
So making it feel achievable.
Yeah.
And that like maybe when you're not grieving, some of those brushing your teeth, making sure you get enough rest, eating food that feels good to your body, to you. When you're grieving, those can feel much more monumentous and require way more time, energy, effort.
Oh yeah.
And so what you may have taken for granted in the past, that's just something you do. When you're grieving, sometimes it's a real big deal to be able to do it.
Yeah, huge deal. And even just to acknowledge what have you done, and sometimes getting up and even facing the day, like that can be coping.
I'm letting the light in, which I'm going to up our light.
Sure.
Because I'm like, we look shadowy.
There you go.
Okay, yes, we're back. Okay, the light has come.
And some of it too with those basic needs is allowing yourself to ask for help and accept help. And that could be someone offering to do a grocery run for you, and instead of being like, no, it's okay, I got it, it's actually maybe saying, yes, that would be helpful. Or if someone offers to do something else that's, you know, like picking up the kids one day a week, or offering to mow your lawn or do some housework, like, yes, we are as humans capable of doing those things, but when we're stressed, struggling, grieving, sometimes those things getting off of our plate is such a game changer, because it allows us to have emotional energy to deal with our grief and let some of those other things just someone else can deal with them, or they don't need to be dealt with for a short period of time.
And we live in such a fast-paced world that we have this tendency to want or need or feel like we have to do everything. And be good at everything. And
all
really,
the time.
All the time. And when you're grieving or you're sick or you're having other things that are going on or just feeling overwhelmed, I've heard a lot of people talking about just being in the fall, the changing of the seasons and it getting darker earlier is throwing off the inner schedule. And so there's this tension that's building, or anxiety, or just discomfort. And so, but we're still just like, oh, but we gotta do this, we gotta do this. And sometimes it's hard enough to just get up and like take a shower. And then we get down on ourselves, or we're afraid what other people might think. But really, it's like, it's okay that those things feel hard, and it's okay if your biggest task of the day is to take a shower, or as Lauren said, brush your teeth, and really just meeting those basic needs.
And what I'm hearing you say is kind of, as best you can, be kind to yourself about where you're at. Which can be very difficult when you're feeling the external pressure or your own internal pressure.
Oh yeah.
And you know, you mentioned the time of season, and I recently did a couples workshop, and then I also went with the same woman that I did the couples workshop. She did a new moon workshop, and it was talking about the equinox being a period of reflection, when we go more inside, when we look at what we've accomplished, where summer is like busy, like, and so just, you know, I often think, am I in a relationship with the natural environment? And if I look at the natural environment, it is shutting down. Like, that's what it's doing. I'm like, well, of course, energetically, if I am a part of nature, which I am, which we could get a whole story about that, but I am a part of nature just like all the other species in the world. It makes sense that my own rhythm would start to match the rhythm of the natural world.
Absolutely. I've even heard it described as just with fall, like, what do the trees do? They let go of their leaves. And so it's a natural time, I think, for us to let go of some things, whether that's our burdens, our stressors, the things that we try to accomplish and hold really tightly to how well we achieve. And so because so many people, even just the beginning of, you know, seasonal affective disorder, and fall is, there's, I don't know, all kinds of anniversaries and dates and different things that can be hard for people any time of year, but fall, I think naturally people start to turn inward, and so it's letting that be what it is, and maybe that's also letting go of some of the other things that you work so hard to achieve, just to focus on ensuring are my basic needs being met as best as I can.
Right? And I'm thinking too of it as a season. It's kind of like a season of rest, right? Things are really going dormant and resting, and so giving ourselves permission to do the same thing, where it's okay if we need to slow down. It's okay if we're in a place where the basic needs is enough, and we don't have the space or the capacity to do more, focus on more, or even care about more. And so allowing ourselves to just take it easy, or to take care of ourselves. I mean, it's not just the basic needs in that category, it's self-care, which is really a trend right now in some ways, the language of self-care anyway. And so that can be different for anybody, and it can be different in various moments of what that means for us. But I think also to include in self-care is resting and being aware of what our needs are and what our body is saying. Like, you need to just take it easy.
And rest. You can't always, you know, Melissa Walker, I don't know if you guys know Melissa Walker, but she's a somatic therapist, and I'm sure this is said often in the somatic world, which is you can only exhale for so long before you have to inhale. Right? And that makes sense. If you're always producing, right, you eventually have got to inhale. And either it will make space for the inhale, or your body eventually will be like, we're inhaling now.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a thing.
It's time.
Yep.
It's time, and it will kind of force you into
Yep,
rest.
absolutely.
I think that too. I mean, we get sick for so many reasons, but often we get sick because we're not slowing down, or we have too much.
Lauren's
not
like,
to point
to my
fingers
own
at
eyes.
anyone.
So Lauren,
Yeah, right? It's so true. And think about how well we're sick, but we keep doing all that we think we should be doing, just plowing through, where it sometimes feels like we feel guilty for slowing down or getting more time to rest, but sometimes the sickness actually forces your hand, which isn't really fun.
No, it's a rough spot, as you know personally.
So we
Lauren's
recommend for
living.
you
So
some self-care.
some rest.
Some rest.
Coming right up.
Coming right up. So we've got basic needs. Is rest under the basic needs then?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's there were 4 categories, right?
4 categories. So the next one is physical release. So that essentially is any physical activity, anything that's getting your body to move. So there are the times that you might feel more like you need physical release is when you're feeling angry, frustrated, even anxiety, where we can start to feel that tension in your body, where you just need to get it out. So going for a walk. This is a great time of year to just go walk outside and get a little bit more sunshine while we have it. Running, sports, gardening, really anything where you're moving your body. Yoga can be great in that category too. We were talking about this. We were talking about, there's times where we feel like we need to scream. So giving yourself permission to go sit in your car and scream, getting that physical outlet. Going out in the yard and throwing rocks, something that's getting that tension out of your body can be really helpful.
Jumping in a pile of leaves.
I like that.
I don't know if anyone else is doing that, but I definitely do that. Especially right after my partner rakes them. That's like the best time.
Get
Perfect timing.
Raking.
Yes.
And
And I'm like, oh, perfect. You just raked those for me. And in Colorado, unlike Oregon, where there were like slugs and snakes and spiders and all kinds of weird shit that you don't want to be jumping into, Colorado, the leaves are lovely.
Oh,
they're
yes.
dry mostly, crispy. You get the crunch.
Well, think about,
So
kids are good at this naturally, just moving their bodies, expressing their energy, their emotions, their opinions, and just the carefreeness to jump in a pile of leaves. Like, kids love that stuff. And as adults,
So does Melissa.
So does Melissa. But not all adults will allow themselves to do something like that. And so if jumping in a pile of leaves stresses you out and feels like too much, it's literally just the idea of letting the energy move through you a little bit, letting yourself express some emotions. And with grief specifically, we've talked about this, sometimes it's hard to know what to think or what to say or what to feel, but your body might need to do something. And so if it's a walk, if it's stomping or throwing something, or even just letting yourself sob or cry in your car or in a quiet space, that actually can be that physical release that can be really powerful. And the leaf idea, there's something that can also cultivate joy, just so simply, that can sometimes help us tap into other emotions that we do have too, but maybe are overshadowed by our grief or by our stress, that helps us kind of connect a little bit more to other parts of ourselves.
And I think with that, what we already know about physical activity is that it's changing the inner structure. It's moving the chemicals around and releasing the things that we need to feel joy or to get out of that kind of dark space that we might spiral into. So really moving your body can be great for grief, trauma, anxiety, where it's moving what we kind of hold tight with and hold in our body. The body at some point is going to have to let it out. I think we've talked about that before in one of our other talks with you, Melissa, but is that the body at some point can't hold that anymore, so it has to let it out. So we might as well aid it with some of these things. And sometimes when we don't know what we need, when we're feeling really stuck, any kind of physical motion or activity, even if it's just tapping, if you're sitting in your office and you can't go for a run, what way can you move your body? It could be moving your feet, it could be tapping on your leg, just something that's getting some sort of motion in your body can help with moving those feelings around and getting things stirred up and letting things out. And just really helps clear our head.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that we have a dance-phobic culture. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm going to name that. That's my observation. There's obviously subcultures, the dance is still a part of it. But I observe a dance-phobic culture, and dance can be so powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if you're just by yourself and you like, you know, blare some sort of song. I don't know why it came in my head, but that Maniac song from the 80s. I was like, you could blare that and be like, woohoo!
Yes.
And you would get out a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Or just even listening to the music, even if you're like, I don't know about this dancing idea. Like, you know, allowing it to sit in your body.
Yeah.
Your body can move on a micro level
Yep.
to that, even if it's just the swing.
Tapping your toes.
I like that
Tapping
you
your
snaps
toes.
too.
Yeah, you know, it's true. It's good.
It is
Good.
good. So physical release is just so powerful. So we've got the basic needs, physical release.
Yep. And then the next one is seeking comfort or relaxation. This sometimes can blend with the self-care, the basic needs, but in the sense of this is doing something that helps soothe and like nurture you. And there's a variety of things that this can be. This could be sitting on a couch, snuggling a blanket, or
Snuggling our new friend.
snuggling this.
Sully, a creature.
Right?
You don't know what he is.
Comforted already.
But so soft. So soft.
It can be getting a hug, like a really good hug from a friend. It can be
Comfort food.
right.
Yeah.
Ice
This
cream.
is perfect time for
Ice
something.
cream. Warm soups,
Yeah.
like
Bread.
bread, yeah, like things that like maybe help you feel good on the inside. Can be sleeping, letting yourself take a nap, sleeping in a little bit, like something that just feels good or is soothing. A lot of also the things that we find helpful in this category are things where it's a mindfulness exercise or a grounding technique. So being in tune with yourself and even just coming back to your breath and the rhythm and comfort of that. And before we're done today, we'll guide us through one so you can experience what that's like. A lot of the seeking comfort too is also not just accepting what is a little bit. So not comparing yourself to where you think you should be in your grief or your stress or your trauma or your anxiety or depression, whatever, but just letting it be, this is what it is, and I'm doing the best I can, and I can't necessarily compare myself to this person over here and think I should be like that, because we just don't know, and there's so many other variables at play there. But your grief is what it is, and we move through it at our own pace, at our own time. It's not linear, and it's not a race. And that there's a lot of these things with the seeking comfort, we might want to do things that are tried and true for us, but we also might need to challenge ourselves to find new ways to restore some of that comfort. I don't know if you guys have things that you've done that have been really comforting to you, but something for me that I come back to often is even just allowing myself to feel the sunshine and access my five senses when I'm outside. Like there's something really like feeling the breeze, like literally feeling the sun on my face instead of like looking at my phone as I'm walking between my car and the building. Just like really just trying to be in the moment. That is soothing and comforting to me, and it's taken some time for me to practice that and implement it, or even to know that was something I liked. So.
I'm thinking of what you're talking about and the concept of coping flexibility, which is what we introduced this as, is finding space to move between these categories. And that we were joking about this, that my partner, whenever I'm having a bad day or he thinks I'm having a bad day, he always wants to give me a hug because I've expressed that hugs typically will help things for me. But there are times where a hug isn't the coping skill that I need. I'm like, there's too much going on internally. So, you know, if somebody gives you a hug thinking that's the soothingness that you need, and you're just like, let me out, that's my sign that maybe I need something other than
Hug
than soothing.
wasn't the thing right
no.
now.
That's where I need to practice my flexibility and like, okay, if it can't be soothed or the relaxation isn't working, then what other categories? And sometimes I know this happens to me, is that I really like the soothing category. So that's where you fall into like comfort eating or
some tea
or trying to like cover up in a blanket and veg out on Netflix, but then I'm still feeling this tension and I'm like, it's not working, I'm not actually feeling better, but I'll keep using stuff in one category and it's not working, where I'm like, oh, maybe if I just, I'll just go for a walk. Oh,
and that physical
suddenly
release,
I feel better.
moves
And
it,
that's the thing. So if you're feeling like what you're trying isn't working, don't just try more in the same category. Try to branch out into these other categories.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so it sounds like, I mean, just even having that awareness is helpful, because you could, it sounds like you might go to these different strategies and be like, well, it still feels stuck.
Yeah.
And so even having that awareness, the invitation, it sounds like, is to, as you're listening to this and reflect, what category feels more comfortable? Which ones can I draw from?
Yeah.
And then what areas could I increase the tools I have in that category?
Yeah. And to be kind to yourself in the process, because we do have things, creatures of habit. We have things that we tend to do more often. So it's not about shaming on you if you don't try other categories, but like it's good to feel uncomfortable trying a different category or trying to expand your coping. But it's also something that could be really helpful and beneficial, but we have to nudge ourselves a little bit or challenge ourselves or have a friend who can help us do those things that maybe don't come as naturally.
Right. I have a lot of clients that talk to me about, like, you can tell me these coping skills, but in the moment when I'm feeling my worst, it's hard for me to go for a walk, or it's hard for me to motivate to do these things. So I think that's where it's important to have a variety, because, you know, you could say exercise and there's people listening that are like, that's not my thing. Okay, well, let's call it something different, or let's try a different category. For those moments when we are kind of in the deepest, darkest, where it's hard to pull ourselves out. You know, it's like, that's where the flexibility is so important and so key to knowing what these options even are.
And so when clients say that, I know I have my own responses, like, it's so hard when things are at our worst. Like, typically, and this is my own experience with counseling, like, often people will either pause or miss a session when things are at its worst, like when their symptoms are the most intense. And they'll say, that would have been a really good time for me to have gone to counseling, but it was really hard to even access the basic needs. So how, you know, in that example, Stephanie, how would you respond to somebody that says, I love this idea of these different strategies, but it's really hard for me to access it when I'm struggling?
It's tough. I mean, I know for myself that's a tough place to be in. And sometimes we have to sink into the darkness a little bit, even a little bit farther, before we're like, okay, this isn't working anymore. I don't have like a cure-all answer for that. Maybe you do. I think it's like what Lauren was saying about practicing that self-kindness. And we know when it's not working, and we know when we need to try something different. So really, like, trusting that voice that, like, I have to do something. I can't just quit, because I know quitting isn't going to get me anywhere. I feel like I want to quit, but this feels so bad that maybe I'll just put on a blanket, and that will help me feel better. And anytime that we're doing something or putting thought into trying something, I have this rock that I keep throwing around.
Which is very soothing.
It's very soothing. It was until I threw it. Also soothing. Don't get me off track. That when we try anything that helps our brains switch gears. So even if it's just, if I'm laying on the floor crying, okay, what if I just get up and move over to the bed? That can help my brain switch gears, to be able to see a little bit more clearly. You know, if nothing's working, just take some deep breaths, and that can help move the oxygen and just the blood around in a way that can help the body regulate more, so then that we have more access to doing these different things.
Yeah, and I think just a few things I would add, Stephanie, because I think that's spot on, is I think sometimes we don't change until we're more fed up. Like, sometimes we tolerate enough of whatever is dark or yucky or hard in our lives, because we somehow are able, not to, like, accept it or manage it, but, like, sometimes we just don't change until we're, like, really uncomfortable. And so sometimes, we have to sink into the darkness a little bit, or we let ourselves go there. But also, any small change, just like what Stephanie was saying, one small shift, a few deep breaths, just to even acknowledging today was shit, but I got through it. Like, those small positive things, like, can shift our trajectory just so much right now, but then down the road it can be a whole lot more. So I think it is about kind of hanging in there, maybe doing some of those things that are tried and true, but also reminding ourselves, you know, tomorrow is a new day. Like, I don't know what tomorrow is going to be like or how it's going to unfold, but I am going to do the best that I can to get through.
And what I add, or what I share with clients, is just what's so beneficial about having community.
Yeah.
So whether they have a spiritual community that they meet with on a regular basis, whether they have, you know, I see a lot of folks impacted by addiction, so often they have an AA group or a CODA group, or and this is where the power of the group is so valuable, because as a culture, so this is part of my new workshop I've been working on that I keep going back to, is the U.S. ranks #1 in individualism. There are great things about that, and what's not so great about that is humans as a species are not wired to heal on their own.
Right.
We most definitely need connection. We're literally, our nervous systems are set up to need others to come back to a base level. And so that's where I kind of push, and it feels super uncomfortable because of how strong that value is to reach out to community. It's why, in general, I don't do my own Facebook Lives, because I believe in the power of community, and I think we can co-create more together. We can heal together. And that's where I'm like, well, you know, can you find an accountability partner that's you both can support each other in this process?
Well, and that moves us really into our fourth category, which is cognitive coping. So using our brain or thought to cope. I'm not using mine right now.
Sometimes that happens, you know? That's part of it, Stephanie. That's part of it.
Obviously,
the brain fog.
That needs a little bit more work today.
It's Monday.
It's Monday.
It's Monday.
Talked about it.
It's the fall. I mean, the lighting wasn't working earlier. I was like, that's just all part of it.
Here we are.
Here we are.
That's where the community takes part. But part of that cognitive coping that we had put in our list is reaching out to others, having that community, having that support system, because just the act of verbal processing can help order our thoughts, can help clear our minds, can be an outlet. And so, you know, whether it's talking to a friend or a counselor, a family member, clergy, different community groups, sometimes it's talking out loud to yourself, you know, just putting a name to a feeling or words to your experience can help with that process and be a positive outlet and just a positive coping skill. It's moving our thought process forward. Another one that can be really helpful is the concept of like the stop sign visualization. So this can be really helpful when you get stuck in like a negative thought process or negative spiral where you're ruminating about something or you're saying bad things about yourself. I think a lot of people have that negative self-talk where once it starts, it's really hard to pull ourselves out of it. Or with grief specific. I know we said we were talking about grief, and you know, when you're going through the what ifs, or I have a client who talks about blame and like the self-blame, or like what could I have, what could have I done differently? Maybe I could have done this or said this or something, and then that's just a spiral that keeps us awake at night, or we get stuck in it and we're not making progress in any other area of life. So the idea of the stop sign visualization, always a hard word for me, is to really just literally picture a stop sign. So picture the shape of it, picture the red, the white words, the word stop, and that works really functionally as a distraction in our brain, which gets our negative thought to stop. But then now we're picturing and visualizing something which gets our brain to change gears. And then after we picture the stop sign, we're telling ourselves to stop this negative thought, stop this process. And then thinking of, okay, what's a positive thought? Maybe it's, you know, the opposite of what you're thinking. Maybe it's like picturing a little kitten. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just what's positive and is going to feel better than this negative spiral I'm in. And so picturing that stop sign until you're ready with a new thought to move forward. So it's really switching from a negative to a positive thought. And that's a great way to use the cognitive brain, as I was trying to say earlier.
Brain that isn't helping me right now.
My brain that's not on. And then another one is, for grief specific, it was grief journaling, but really journaling for any category. Which journaling, again, is kind of like talking in the way that it gives us a place to create a narrative for our experience. It's putting words and naming things, so it has our thoughts and our experience have an order. Sometimes we get lost in all the things that are happening that we can't even say. You asked us earlier, how are you doing? And we're both like, life. Where it's like, until we can sit down and put words to what's happening, we get a little bit lost in sometimes the experience or the feelings, and we don't even know how to answer that question. So journaling can be really helpful in an outlet, but also ordering the thought process. And really, I mean, I'm a firm believer in creating the narrative, and putting, what really happened versus what we thought happened. And then with grief, or again, with any category, if you don't know how to journal and the free form writing isn't for you, then using prompts, and you can reach out to us to provide some of those ideas, but using like sentence starters or grief prompt or writing prompts to kind of know where to start can be really helpful too.
Yeah, it's like in school, you guys might remember when you would have those professors that would be like, just do this, and it would be so open-ended, and you'd be like you'd have to do a topic on, I don't know, like social justice and ethics, and you'd be like that just feels so broad, and there's so much I could cover, and it's overwhelming, versus I always preferred a prompt that was like, how are these specific ethics impacting this specific social justice issue? And I'd be like, perfect, because then I can start percolating on it. It can be really hard.
As an outline in some ways.
It gives it form, and then you can work and be creative within that form.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. And I finally myself have started journaling. I've had lots of clients I've done it throughout the year, and the last 2 times I've gone in to see my Reiki practitioner, she's been like, I'm getting the sense that you really need a journal, and I'm like, I know, I've been thinking about it. It's been percolating in my head.
Tells you things you should do that you tell your clients to do, but you don't actually do.
It's true. And then I have that accountability, right? So the last time I went into Reiki, they were like, she was like, did you get a journal? And I was like, no. No, I didn't. I'm going to. So
I'm actually going to do that after I leave here.
After I leave here. It's already, I'm on my way, actually. You see me out the door. But I finally did do it. And it has been really helpful, as it always is when you write things down. I've written in other forms, but this, and I got a journal that has prompts. And it's matching the seasons, so it's really,
that's really nice.
Awesome.
But I think it's also about trying a variety of things and trying some things without just assuming this isn't going to work for me, or I hate writing, or I hate this. It's like, okay, maybe, but we don't know if it might help now with whatever's going on for you. So it is a little bit about viewing it as an experiment, having an open mind, and giving something a shot, because it might actually be a great coping.
And I think that's where the flexibility rounds it all out, is that we have to try various things, because even the things, as you said, the tried and true, there comes a point where those just may not work.
Right.
Like my example of a hug. That works for most things. And I can rely on it, but sometimes it just doesn't work. And so knowing that we have to be available to ourselves to try other categories. And it might be hit or miss. You might try a bunch of stuff that you're like, nothing's going to work until the right one works, or the right thing fits in that moment.
And usually I find if I'm avoiding doing that particular strategy, it is the exact strategy
what you need.
I need. That's been my experience.
They'll go for a walk.
Like the one that I'm like, oh, that's something, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. That sounds, no. And I can come up with 100 reasons, and I'll use other strategies
around it.
Around it, but it's usually that exact one that I know that's percolating, that I can feel called to, that I've been avoiding.
Right. I think when you ask the question of what do you tell a client when they say nothing works, listen to that inner voice. It's usually right. It's your body's telling you what you need or what might help, and if you're avoiding it, start there.
Start with what you're avoiding.
Just start there.
Well, so you mentioned leading us in an exercise. Let's maybe take a few minutes to do that, and then
good to switch into that.
Okay.
So one of the coping skills that maybe we're not always as familiar with, or we don't know how to do ourselves, is some of that mindfulness meditation. So that's what we're going to focus on today. If you can bear through my nasally voice with my cold.
It's very soothing.
Oh, thank you. But even if you have done mindfulness or meditation, like sometimes this is a way to help ourselves slow down, step out of autopilot, get a little more in tune with our body and our mind, our emotions, And from that place, then sometimes we can have more insight for what do we need. So we'll just do this together. I'll guide you guys through it, and if you're watching, you can do it as well. I'm gonna set my nice little rock here. There's a couple ways I like to teach this, but the first, you want to just put your feet on the ground, uncross your legs, roll your shoulders up, back, and down. So you want to have like a dignified posture, but not too rigid or slouched. And I just end up setting my hands on my knees, but whatever's comfortable for you. Sometimes also another soothing posture is like putting one hand on your heart and one on your belly. This sometimes just can feel, help us tune into how we're feeling. So if you want to stay like this, you can. Otherwise, you can put your hands back on your knees. And I'll just invite you to shut down your eyes just for a moment. If that feels too weird to you, you can just focus on the spot in front of you a little bit. But go ahead and just tune into some of your sensations that you feel. So let's start by just even noticing sounds in the room, sounds where you're at watching this video, sounds outside the room or maybe even within yourself. Feel your breath, feel your heartbeat. And even with your eyes closed, just notice any sensations of lightness or darkness. Your next inhale, feel what it's like to breathe the air in, maybe even noticing the coolness of it. And then notice the warmth of it leaving your body. Check in with your mouth and just notice any sensations you have there, maybe dryness, coffee from the morning. And then lastly, just tune in briefly to physical sensations. So noting where your body makes contact with the chair, the floor, and just feel your hands where they touch your body. This is just a brief way to use our senses to help us come into the present moment. Just take a few deep breaths on your own, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Let your shoulders fall just a little. And next, bring your attention as best as you can to one single point of your breath, maybe even focusing on the area between your upper lip and your nose. Noticing the movement of air there. Noticing the rise and fall of your chest and your belly. Just as best as you can, focus on your breath. If your mind's distracted, there's noises outside the room I can hear, or if there might be things you have going on where you're at that are distracting, just notice it, but then come back again to your breath, just for a few more moments. And now we're going to expand our awareness back out a little bit, continuing to breathe, but imagine from the tip of your head all the way down to your toes. Just do a brief body scan, slowly continuing to breathe and looking maybe for any areas of tension, pain, or even something that maybe feels relaxed or okay. But just imagine your whole body breathing for just a few more breaths. There's nothing else for you to do right now but to sit here and allow yourself to breathe. Let's take 2 more deep breaths together, rounding out this brief meditation. And on your last exhale, you can open your eyes, come come back. Sometimes after something like this, I just naturally want to stretch. So do whatever your body maybe wants or needs.
That sounds
Sometimes just like, it's so organic, it just happens. So just do it. And so that was just a super, I was going to say quick and dirty breathing exercise. I don't know if I need to give it that description.
Don't know how sexual it really was.
I didn't mean it like that.
If your mind went there, it's
sorry.
okay.
But just like kind of a short and sweet breathing space exercise that sometimes is simple but actually really hard to do, but can be a different type of coping that maybe we are familiar with but don't do. I'm guilty of that. I know how to do this and I don't always do it for myself, or maybe it's something we haven't done before that can allow us to slow down just a little bit and acknowledge what else might be going on within us. Did you want to say anything else about just why we do this?
Well, yes, but also just with that specific meditation, when you're feeling, if you feel like you don't know how to do these or you don't know what to do, with that one it's just thinking of the five senses. So you can walk yourself through just remembering what the five senses are, and walking yourself through that can be really helpful. And there's so many resources online, or connect with any of us and we can help provide some specific ideas. And I was thinking, as I was thinking while doing it, it's hard to shut the brain down, to give yourself that self-kindness of it's okay if you're not just focused the whole time. But what I was thinking was, I was going to ask you, Melissa, no matter how many times I've led people through that specific version of that meditation, it's always nice for me to have somebody else do it, because I'm always learning something new or recognizing something new, or just it's nice to have somebody else guide. I told Lauren she had to do it because I like to listen to her voice.
It was soothing, even though we were teasing. I mean, I was teasing you. It really was soothing. Even with the cold, maybe it gave you a little even deeper octave, which was a nice addition. I don't know if it was going to be.
I felt soothed.
Exactly. I really enjoy it. And I always think like, you can just really pace in a way, like for yourself, or if you were even, I often sometimes, even before meetings, like I'm like, hey, I think I did it at my workshop, but I don't remember. But often when I'm facilitating something, even if it's not related to the therapeutic work we do, I think all of us can benefit from slowing down. So I will pause, but it's nice to remember, like, to slow down, and that there is no really right or wrong way to do it.
And it's not that any mindfulness meditation will make our pain go away, or anxiety, or trauma, or depression, grief, whatever, but it sometimes helps us through those really tough moments, which is why I really like mindfulness meditation. Is it helps us have some tools to just get through something that might be really hard, knowing that, okay, like, I'm still here, I still have my breath with me, like, I can slow down. Sometimes it's hard and we feel yucky when we slow down, but that maybe was already there anyways, and we're just letting ourselves tap into it, feel it, which then can give us more awareness of acknowledging, what do I need now to go forward. So it's okay if it feels weird, or even if it feels bad. Mindfulness doesn't always mean we feel good, but I do think there's power in it that can help us get through something. So that's something I like to suggest to my clients when, like, we're feeling really stuck in a certain thing, that this can be another tool to maybe learn or try to see if it helps kind of get us through some of those stuck times.
Really, I mean, you asked the question of what was the purpose, and it's that working as something that grounds us and brings us back into the present moment. Kind of when I was talking about, like, getting stuck in that spiral, or ruminating about something too much, this can help bring us back to what's really happening in front of me, bringing my thoughts back to the present, and not wondering about, not worrying about everything in the past, present, and future, but really what's happening right here. Any of those different kinds of mindfulness, or body scans, or just kind of coming into ourselves. And in some ways, this goes with all the categories, but a lot of these coping skills, like Lauren said, you're not necessarily going to be healed, but it can just be a distraction, and just enough of a distraction to let us take a break from those dark or hard feelings, or feeling overwhelmed. And the mindfulness specifically, but a lot of them help bring us back to being ruled by our emotions, to back to a rational brain, and so being able to use our cognitive coping, really to use, get back to being able to think clearly and having access to our full self, and not just our emotion.
And to living, because really life can only be lived in the present, right? Like, we may be able to imagine what could be or reflect on the past, and what it means to be living, and we are living beings, is to be here in the moment. So the more we can access that, the more access we really have to life. And when people are feeling very numbed or disconnected, that can be what helps us move through, because we reconnect. You know, I have, as Lauren and Stephanie know, I like, and a lot of my clients know, I've been posting this I post these live cans of animals on my computer screen, and there's a whole bunch of them, explore.org, don't worry, I'll include the link. But what I like about it, and a client captured it so well, is it captures that there are other things going on in the world. There are other species on this planet that are living life at the same time as we are, and experiencing a totally different experience of the world. And it gives us perspective, because it's when we're feeling all these emotions, our focus can become so myopic and so narrowed and focused, and we're just like, oh, we're just here in the suffering, and it feels so terrible, and it's so small. And it opens it up to like, oh, like, you know, there's sea lions just having, you know, just sunbathing right now. Right at this exact moment, and they're having a great time. Right. You know, they ate a lot of food last night because they're nocturnal, and they just sit on, you know, and they just lay there. It's great. They're stoked.
Totally.
It's helpful to have that perspective.
No, it's true. It's true. Absolutely.
Well, like you said, you know, we can get so caught up in our own experience that even the piece of, you know, connecting with other people can be key to, okay, we can share in this experience, or we are both having a hard time, so let's learn from each other, or just sit in each other's and that can help us feel less alone, or like there is somebody on my team.
So we went a very long time, which is great. Lots of content. And I do want to highlight, you guys have some workshops coming up. So will you, in groups and stuff. So will you speak a little bit to that, and we'll include links to that?
Yeah, we can include those links. So next Wednesday, the 16th at Connects, we're doing a workshop on Grief 101, supporting others through grief, and that's going to be from 10 to 11:30. And then the following week, Wednesday the 23rd, we're going to be doing a grief group, so more of a process-oriented group where we'll be teaching these skills, talking about these skills, learning from each other, and there are going to be a variety of topics. So it's going to be from 6 to 8:30.
Nope, 6:30 to 8.
6:30 to 8. Hang on. Hold that.
6:30 to 8, starting on
Thank you.
Wednesday, the
23rd.
October 23rd, for a series of 5 weeks. And it's a drop-in group, so you don't have to come to all. If you can't, you can come to one, you can come to a couple. It's up to the person.
Yeah, I think that's something Stephanie and I feel really passionate about, is wanting to help get this education to people. So whether you're grieving or someone that you know has been going through a hard time or feeling stuck, like this could be a great way for them to learn some more support, for you to learn some more skills for yourself to get through.
And all that information is on our website, and
we can send you the
connect
links.
to us.
We'll include it in the comments as well. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your wisdom, insight, and humor.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
It's great. No, I'm sure we'll do another one, so stay tuned.
Yes.
And again, please, I invite you to pass this along to anyone that you know that's grieving or just having a hard time, which is like, I know most people, either professionally or personally, are experiencing the energy of the culture and what's going on, big picture. So pretty much everyone I know, I think, would benefit from exploring ways to cope.
If it doesn't feel relevant to you in this moment, it will
at some point.
Later today, maybe.
Later today.
Who knows?
It is
It's still Monday.
Still Monday, and it's still the morning. So stay tuned.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.